Hey folks, this is going to be a super short video. I apologize. It's been about 2 weeks since my last edition of the Wade Forward, but today is volume 15. And as I said, it's going to be super short. I just really want to spend a couple of minutes talking about, this is really just an open letter to Erin Reed about her activism and in particular what she's done to explain the biased junk science that the Trump administration just issued on transgender people. Like I said, we're going to do this in about 5, maybe at most 10 minutes. But for all of those straight super friends who are out there, I'm going to be doing a little more detailed bit of commentary on the Trump's recent attack on transgender people, most recent attack on transgender people. So I'll try and do that a little later in the weekend. But again, today is volume 15 of the Wade Forward, and I'm recording this on May 2nd, 2025. So, dear Erin, this is my letter to you after last night's interview on Madeline's brand's Press Play. The first thing I want to say is I follow your Erin in the Morning podcast religiously, and I saw that you weren't feeling so well and that you've been battling some COVID. So I was really happy to hear you sound so strong and so well on the on the Press Play interview last night. However, I hope you're taking care of yourself. Don't push yourself too hard. We really need you out there. Yeah, we really do need you. And in particular, I wanted to just give you a couple of quick thoughts. The first one on your interview and your activism in general, but especially on last night's interview, is you were, as always, encyclopedic in your knowledge about our community and our rights. You were clear, articulate, forceful, as you always are, but never more so last night than when we really needed you on a national outlet explaining the horrors of what's happening to a straight world that doesn't understand us and that spends an awful lot of time beating us up out of their own ignorance. So thank you for that. It was a masterclass on how to do it. That said, as a listener and somebody who follows you regularly and has her own strategic opinions, I just thought I'd offer 2 constructive bits of criticism, just 2 things that I thought you might have done a hair better. So the first of my suggestions concerns a bit of language that I think you should excise from your vocabulary. You made a brilliant argument or an analogy between what the Trump administration is doing right now and what NIH just did in this report, pathologizing transgender youth and suggesting therapy to essentially untrans people. You suggested that this is not only conversion therapy, but you likened it to this idea going back to the bad old days of the 80s and 90s that suggested that homosexuality was wrong and therefore it was okay to try and convert people from homosexuality. That's a great argument to make, and it's exactly on point and on message and right. However, the one thing you did in there that I think that doesn't help our case is you used the word sodomy and to describe previously proscribed homosexual behavior or homosexual sex. I think you're much better off talking about gay sex than you are ever using the word sodomy. Sodomy this is a very George Lakoff point about how to message. George Lakoff, don't think of an elephant. George Lakoff famously told Democrats, stop talking about tax relief because it makes it sound like any government taxation is some kind of a pox from which you need to be liberated from, and you can't unthink that as soon as you've used that coded language. I think the same thing is true of sodomy. Sodomy is a word that's essentially owned by the religious right, but that all people in its common vernacular use understand and immediately codes for deviant behavior that's beyond the pale. So I would never use that to describe anyone within the LGBT movement. We need to normalize our existence and not use words like sodomy. So yeah, my suggestion is that didn't help the argument, that actually detracted from it. So my second tactical suggestion in talking about the master class you put on last night on your Madeline brand Press Play interview, my second suggestion concerns a missed opportunity. Madeline asked you about the safety of gender-affirming care, particularly hormone use and especially hormone blockers in transgender youth. And she asked, isn't it fair to question the safety of these medical modalities? You're right to immediately talk about the mountains of evidence that have shown that these modalities are not only safe, but that they save lives, and point out that all the peer-reviewed research, almost without exception, points strongly in that direction, and that every conceivable peer-reviewed research and every true medical organization that has any expertise or knowledge in this field has supported gender-affirming care, including hormone treatments and hormone suppressive treatments or puberty blockers in adolescent youth, and that they save lives. That's great. What the opportunity, however, you missed, and I think you probably know this, and maybe you're kicking yourself, I don't know, so who am I to tell you? But I think the thing you missed is you missed answering that question by saying that none of the people in the Trump administration or anybody else who's questioning gender-affirming care for trans youth questions gender-affirming care for gender-conforming youth. These puberty blockers have not only been used for decades and decades for cancer treatments and other things for young people in pediatric medicine, but they've been used to help gender-conforming youth avoid either precocious puberty or for the boy who has masculinizing features like the development of breasts, that these therapies have been used for decades and nobody is talking about their safety. And in fact, they've not only been proved safe there, this is perfectly acceptable, for instance, in Kentucky, where they've specifically banned the use of these modalities for transition or to support trans youth, but the law specifically allows their use for gender-conforming care. So I just thought that was a missed opportunity. Again, Erin, I don't mean to criticize, and I'm probably telling you stuff you already know. To the rest of you, especially you straight peeps, I want to tell you that Erin is, in my opinion, probably one of the most brilliant journalists operating in America today. And we are so lucky that we trans people have her on our side. She is literally the most prolific, most knowledgeable, and most articulate journalist discussing transgender issues in the entire world, and certainly in the United States. So, Erin, thank you for being you. Stay healthy. Make sure that COVID relapse is a real thing. Be careful. Don't overextend yourself. We love you, and thank you so much for all you're doing to help us and to help communicate to a world that doesn't understand us. Bye now. Oh, and for you straight peeps, I'm going to drop a link to Erin's Substack, Erin in the Morning. You'll get it daily in your email, and you can read it or not read it, but she's always on point, and she's always super brief and succinct and gets to that point. So if you're at all interested in transgender issues, especially straight folks, check out Erin's podcast, Erin in the Morning. Thanks, folks. I'll do a longer podcast on the Trump's latest attack on gender-affirming care for youth and what it means also for transgender people in general shortly. But thanks again for watching, and we'll see you soon.